Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. I'm joined by Brian and Ali in what will be our first ever episode that is also on YouTube. I'm in the process of moving, so I have no background essentially, just got the jersey thrown on what is an empty bookshelf. Everything's been packed up. Very busy weekend for myself, but how are you two guys doing?
Good, good, man. Just working and working. Glad the football is back, and just glad to be on another episode again. It's been a while.
Yeah, same man. Doing well. Busy weekend on my end, but we did get to watch our boys pull out a nice win. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah, so what did you guys think about the match?
Honestly, I was pretty happy for the most part, because we had an idea of how Shaheen wanted to play, but we never actually saw it in obviously a competitive game up until now. Even if the competition wasn't um, with respect to them, like what we're going to be facing later on in the season. It was just good to see that, well, one, we could play without an out and out nine, and all the new signings seem to be flowing. I say all, right? We saw a couple of them. And yeah, like mostly good things. It wasn't like up until like, the second half of the second half, I was like, but mostly good things.
Football in Dortmund is fun again. I'll start by saying that because that was a fun game to watch. I know we were playing Lubeck, which third tier, it's once again not the top tier opposition that we want to see them like perform against, but it was the opposition that they had in front of them. It was an important game, competitive game. They did well. Overall, we got to see a little bit more of that diagonal crossing out to the like marauding fullbacks, which I think initially when we saw that more against Villarreal, which kind of was a theme of what Shaheen was trying to do, it wasn't fully there. I mean, Rierson wasn't really able to catch up to it at that time, but in this game, I feel like we saw that like working out a lot more. Maybe that was a little bit more also because Gross was more into the game and he was able to control the game a little bit more from the midfield. A lot of one touch ping passes. It was just fun to watch the ball moving around so quickly. It was nowhere near as static as what we saw last season, so that was overall really nice to see. Of course, we did have some defensive lapses, but I mean, we're still just getting out of preseason. I don't want to, harp on that too much and be like, oh, that's something to worry about too much. We'll see down the line. I mean, Lubeck shouldn't be scoring against Dortmund, but they did, and it is what it is. And it was great to see Julian Duranville score his first competitive goal, and that ball in from Kuto. That
For
was a
for
peach.
Dortmund, for Dortmund, I believe he did score at Anderlecht.
Yes, for Dortmund. That's what I mean to say. First professional goal for Dortmund. But yeah, no, it was really great to see him do that. And yeah, Jan Kuto again with one of those really nice incisive passes. It was fantastic. I was very happy to see.
Yeah, I don't know how much we're gonna see all three center backs start together. Like, if that happens, there's gonna be a signing there. So I fully expect Ben Sebaini, Kavar, Ryerson on the left. Like, whatever their plan is, Ryerson on the left would worry me just because that basically means we're on a knife's edge. Having essentially one left back in the squad also on a knife's edge. Because Kabar, I think, I don't know how much they're believing in him. We didn't really see him in this match. We didn't see Ben Sebaini in this match, so I just think that goes as to like their thought process there. So maybe a signing to come, and if not, like we have seen them two consecutive campaigns now. As I roll my eyes, like this is something that could be a possibility, but I really don't think that for most of these games you're gonna see those three guys all start together across the back line. And then again, I think it's a similar thing in midfield. When I think we're going to be playing some of these weaker sides, I think we gave the first game to Shan, and I think we'll give a lot of the bigger games to Shan. But again, that's a player who we'll get more into in our first dud of the week of the season. But that's a player who I don't necessarily think is going to start against a lot of teams that we expect to sit in these deeper blocks. Because I think you have Gross there; he's going to do all the in possession work of a six, and you'll rely a little bit more on your center backs and your fullbacks to defend well, and your press, which the press in this is against like that low level opponent was very good. But I think that's more going to be my double pivot going forward against all opponents for Shaheen. I expect that uh, the Sabitzer Gross double pivot should be in effect against a lot of the smaller teams when he doesn't care so much about their attacking impetus. But let's go into a positive note. Who's your star of the week? Do you want to kick it off with your first star of the week, Ryan?
Sure. I wasn't expecting us to talk about it this early. But I guess I would say Pascal Gross. I mean, 2 assists in the game. He's clearly gelling very well into the starting 11 and dictating a lot of the play from the midfield. So, I mean, I think he's been great. I've been saying this on almost every episode since we've signed him. I think people underestimated him when he was coming in to Dortmund, and I do think he's going to play a very important role in that midfield for Dortmund. And I just really liked what I saw from him. Just the energy, obviously, like I said, the 2 assists, and just being kind of all over the place and really helping stabilize that midfield, which is one of the problems we had last season. So keeping it short and sweet, Pascal Gross.
For me, I really like Brandt because we saw him kind of play that free roaming attacking role where like he was false nine and went onto the wings and just like that goal was really really nice. I wanted to say Gross as well, but want to keep it different. But no, he was great. I really liked just how confident he was. Obviously, the competition is the competition, but yeah, he was fantastic.
Okay, and then mine. It's gonna be the guy 3 minutes into the game. I was asked if Anton, because I think you said I watched him a bit more than you, was a good set piece target, Ollie. And 3 minutes into this match, what does he do? Get on the end of a set piece target. Um, Genuinely looks really really good in this match. Obviously not the best opponent, but did everything you kind of wanted. I think all the defensive frailties were not necessarily on him. I think some of your secondary guys on set pieces defensively need to be getting a little bit better. I think there was some funny stuff going on at the end of like Pokal madness on the defensive set pieces, but we've also seen Dortmund struggle on the defensive set pieces before, especially on corners. So that is something to keep an eye on. But the only goal was like, just like I'm chalking that one up as like a bit of a fluke, because I don't think that guy would be playing in the fourth division of soccer at the age of 30 if he was regularly uh, like winning the ball up that high up the pitch, dribbling two guys and hitting it top ends. Very very good for him to do so. It's the best moment of his career, I'm sure, to do that in front of 50,000 screaming fans. And no disrespect to him, but like again, not on Anton. Didn't put a foot wrong really. And opening signing, getting the goal first. Love to see it. First guy in the window, first to score. So can't really complain there. And now I think I have to go first for Dud of the Week because this kind of pissed me off. Watching this game is Daniel Mullen subbed off the bench. Um, didn't look very interested in the game, which I'm sure he was. I'm sure he wanted to score and play well, but he just looked a bit lost. Um, we've seen some other guys come in with like come back from the Euros and look like the top class senior players that were like, okay, you got your minutes early in preseason. Like Sabitzer, Gross, like these guys, as soon as they came back, they looked like world class, like Champions League finalists that they were last season. And Daniel Mullen did not look like that, and was not a significant part of the Champions League final run. And so you'd think he'd come back with like a point to prove and want to be doing everything he could. And he just looked like he didn't really show for the ball enough, which is like an issue I've had with him previously. But he just it's a short appearance. I will give him that. It's not something that I'm gonna hold against him long term, but just like the lack of things I saw from him, like Jimmy Bynoe-Gittens will have ups and downs. He's a young player and he tries to do very difficult things. He's not like an efficient player. He's not like this is gonna happen. He should continue to get starts. As good as Duranville looked when he did come on. This is Jamie Bynoe-Gittens' spot to lose. Kareem Adeyemi back-to-back matches. He's getting on the end of chances. He has a couple nice layoffs that ended up as key passes. And he's constantly creating danger. Back-to-back penalties won. Also had a very nice dribble where he split two defenders. And if it wasn't for the left back sprinting back, he would have drawn a red card. Instead, drew a yellow for a dangerous free kick. Like all these players are creating danger, and then you have Daniel Mullen coming on, and he just doesn't look like he necessarily knows the system. And he just doesn't look like he's has the desire to like get the ball into his feet, to take shots, to do the things that a confident, informed Daniel Mullen can do. So he's my first stud of the week.
I was honestly gonna pick him as well. I'm not really sure what's going on the back end. I'm not sure if he's been told that he might be on his way out or something. But yeah, it's everything you said. Like he wasn't interested. He didn't want to play. It was kind of like it's kind of harsh to say, I know, but like, why are you here if you're so not really playing with your heart? And you mentioned Jamie Bynoe-Gittens. It is a different role for him, like on on the left flank to play a bit more defensive and provide that width in a different way. But it's also harsh to. I'm not saying that you were being harsh on him. I'm just saying like I saw some tweets where people were like, "Oh, he wasn't playing well." All these things. I think he was doing what he can. But yeah, Daniel, I don't know, not his best performance. I hope that changes.
I mean, I think his performance kind of comes down to the two things that we've kind of already touched on in this episode. One, it was a very short appearance, and two, it's still we're still just coming out of preseason. I don't think he's had as many minutes on the pitch as some of the other players that have been able to, kind of get up to speed since the Euros and all that. So I mean, there's that involved. He was on my mind as well with regards to discussing this portion of the pod. And I think it's with this game, it's a little bit harsh to pick out a specific dud because I think everyone like it gelled well, and I think everyone did decently. I don't think there was a poor performance on the pitch. I was actually just gonna go with Meyer, and that's harsh on my end, simply because we let the goal in against a third division side, and I mean it doesn't fully come down to him, because once again there were a few stupid giveaways and stuff in the middle of the pitch that kind of put him under pressure. But specifically for that goal, and I don't know if you guys saw this too, for me it seemed he seemed very static in goal throughout his appearance. I don't know, maybe that was just me, but it just felt like he just wasn't fully up to speed. And I guess that's good, that he got these minutes, that Dortmund were like, let's take Kobel off, I mean, I think there was something with his back or something that he felt like a twinge or something. They were like, they wanted to take that out, but I don't think there's that much to it. I think it was more so they wanted to give their second string keeper, minutes. And I think it was good that they did because, it showed that he was a little rusty. The game was already secured. Give him the minutes to get that blood flowing, So, not trying to be harsh on him or anything, because I do think in general we were good. But yeah, I'll go with him just because, we're picking somebody.
I think we have someone dodging a little bit. I think there's one more name that we could kind of talk about. But if Ollie wants to just double up, cop out, and just go with my answer, that's fine as
Who?
well.
Rierson?
Ooh, you could if you think, but I think there's. I mean, I already kind of mentioned it. But we could talk more about
Sula?
it.
I don't know. I actually don't know what you're talking
A
about.
central midfielder.
Oh, Chan.
I mean, it's
Chan.
your pick. It's your pick.
No, no.
So I'll let you go in whatever direction.
I tweeted out that that double could work, but it's not working right now. I think Chan is a little too slow for how quick the team can move. Um, I don't want to count him out so early in the season. In the same way, I don't want to count out Daniel. Um, but yeah, no, I think we harped on him a lot last season. I want to give him a break.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But
I saw it on Twitter. There were a lot of passes misplaced, and I think that's like something to talk about. Like I said, I think already like against like your bottom half teams, your deep block teams, um, in the league especially. Like obviously, if you come up against the deep block team that's like a bit stronger, like a Champions League, like Porto tie, like then Emre Can should still be playing because they have threats on the counter attack. But if we're playing against Bochum and I'm seeing Emre Can in the 11, that's gonna fill me with worry because that's a guy that when you have that much of the ball, like Sula 200 passes, whatever it was, um, when you're seeing that level of possession, Emre Can's flaws get highlighted. So the like 5 to 6 passes he's misplacing that like a professional footballer getting paid at his level should complete. I think that gets highlighted even more. So I think just avoiding him against those weaker teams and then like maybe trying the Sabitzer Gross double pivot at some point, which I'm sure we will see this season, um, is good. But again, like he's club captain. You don't want to upset the dressing room by removing him without merit. So like just from the standpoint of looking at a long season, you need to give him like the room to play himself out of the 11 and out of certain different types of ties, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. I don't think there's too much we need to say about it. I expect him to start against Frankfurt again. I think that's a better team in transition, so it's a bit better suited to highlighting his strengths. But now let's get into the first topic of our show. We have Borussia Dortmund recording record earnings from last season, 639 million gross, 509 million without transfers. It's a 24% increase over the last year. Obviously, Champions League final run is going to be a big portion of that. Um, and that's going to help you out commercially a lot because you're going to hit the bonuses on your ad deals. Um, but is there anything we need to really discuss about this? Like, what's your takeaway here?
um, it's great. Um, as long as it transfers into I guess what we see on the field in some way. So whether that's transfers or wages and just things of that nature, I'll care. But if it's just numbers, I really I personally I don't have an interest. I just want to see the players happy and just some good football.
I think it's good to highlight the numbers just because it shows how much the club has grown. And that, like you're saying, Ali, I think that'll eventually end up translating into, better deals for players, being able to retain players, or bringing in better players. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, just highlighting it as a moment of growth for the club, I think it's great. And yeah, it's just really nice to see that both through performances. I mean, we harped on the league performance last year, but going to the Champions League final, expanding to other markets and all of that, the club is just growing and yeah, it's just all to the benefit of that which is Borussia Dortmund. So I'm very happy to see.
Yeah, I think in transfers you've already seen it. Like typically, if you had a big financial outlay like we did, I believe 2 years ago, it was Haller, Adeyemi, Schlotterbeck, Sula, all these guys coming in. If you look at the 2 summers before that, it was a big positive of net spend, where it was like Sancho out and Holland out, and like the guys that replaced them were a bit cheaper. Whereas this season we haven't had a major outgoing and we have added a ton of salary. Like you look at the loans expiring or Meunier, however you want to describe it. Wolf leaving, Hummels, Royce, like right there, you're looking at about 20 million. You look at the guys we brought in, with Gross, Bayer, Garassi, um, Bayer, all these guys are on first team wages. And so like right there, you're looking at like um the same money out, and that's with fees, or not taking into account the fees. So I think you are having the bigger spend there. um and like we're doing that before we've shifted a lot of the guys that we intended to shift this summer. And so being able to go out and spend money before you make a transfer really helps you, because it allows you to get Jan Koto before another team kind of gobbles him up, and is able to like make that signing. So having the money up front just helps you out so much. Obviously, don't have the money up front for Koto because that's a loan deal. But look at Anton, look at Garassi, Gross. These guys we wrapped up fairly early, just because we had that higher level of income, and that allows you to do better business. Like you look at the early signings we've done, Schlotterbeck, Sula, like those signings, like we got those done early. They had the full preseason with the club. Obviously, Euro's gotten away of some of that this summer, but we still had everything lined up like pretty early, and I think that's very important. And that level of income is what allows you to do that. Um, so then our next topic, Tom Rotha envisions a return to Dortmund one day. He said if his goal is to hit the ground running, basically, and find the level of success, and then if Dortmund comes calling, he's not against it. Is basically the quote. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Brian, you could take this one.
I mean, it kind of like gets rid of some of the fear I had previously, right? Like I remember we talked about it on a previous episode, and we were basically saying like, well, this could be the end of his opportunity to assert himself on the Dortmund starting 11, him being a like an academy boy and all of that. So it was really sad initially to see him go and move to Union Berlin, and it seemed like that was that. Like, why would he at that point be coming back? But to hear that, it's nice because that means like, well, okay, maybe that story isn't fully over. Maybe 2-3 years time, we want to bring him back because he's performed well. Because we have a need for that position. I mean, we had a need now, but just saying like in terms of looking forward into the future. So yeah, it leaves the door open, and I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of personal feelings there as well. The club where he started his footballing career and all that. So yeah, it's nice to see that that door's still open, that chapter isn't fully closed, and it's also nice to see that level of perseverance that he has, because it's clear that he wants to play. It's clear that he wants to show like what he can do. And it's not always easy uprooting yourself and going to another club. Like this was a decision made out of necessity, clearly, not out of because like, oh, I want to go play for Union Berlin. No disrespect to them. But like the guy was just like, hey, yeah, like, you know what? I want to go compete against Robin Gosens and see if I could, get past him and show Dortmund that I'm the player that they want out in left back. And I have a firm belief that he will show his quality and that his chapter at Dortmund isn't really done just yet.
Yeah, I mean we'll see what happens. Obviously unused sub, but only just joined Union Berlin for their DFB Pokal tie. So I do expect him to get minutes this season. He's straight in my Bundesliga Fantasy 11. And you will see on our Twitter at Dortmund Dispatch. So it's Dortmund Dispatch, no second D in Dortmund on the first letter, or the first word, because ran out of characters on Twitter. But anyway, on our pinned tweet on our Twitter account, that's our you can find our Fantasy 11, and we'll be shouting out periodically throughout the season whoever is in first place. I was in a league with some friends last year. I won first place. And you can also challenge a lot of our hosts are in the league. And so we will be shouting out whoever's in first place. So you can join there. We have the invite link, like I said, pinned in our Twitter bio. But let's go on to our next topic. It's Paris Brunner joining AS Monaco on loan to Cercle Bruges. Youssoufa Moukoko threatened with staying in the stands if he doesn't find another club, and Haller potentially set to stay as the third choice striker. I think Moukoko agreed personal terms with Betis as a little update to this, but let's talk about some of the merry-go-round we've seen in attack.
So with regards to Brunner, it's I think we talked about it a while back. I don't really like drama with the club. So when there was a lot of drama, I was like, man, like I understand, he wants to play and everything, but it might just be easier for him to just go. And if he's gone and he's happy, then I'm happy for him and I'm happy for the club. With Mukoko, the whole saga has really been so annoying to follow because this is someone that we expected to be our nine for like years to come, and the way they've handled it is extremely, I want to say, I don't even know what to say. It's just been annoying. Like, we wanted him to be our guy, and they've not really kept that door open for him. And more or less, I told him, listen, if you want to go, you can go. And that's really disheartening. But it is what it is at this point. Now with Haller, I think it's like really disrespectful to have him as the third choice striker. I think it's nice that he wants to compete for the striker position, but I think his quality is of a starting nine. So it gives us options, that's for sure. But I guess it's on him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't know how there isn't a club that doesn't want Sebastian Aller. And again, I think like I've talked about this before, but this isn't. These situations are entirely on Terzic. Like we gave 90 minutes to Ole Paulman and uh, Samuel Bamba last season. That goes to Brunner. He gets to see how difficult the Bundesliga is, and maybe all of a sudden he's like, okay, maybe I need to like fight for my minutes and improve and do all that stuff. With Allaire, like some club needs to like learn how to scout because like we've seen this guy at a professional level for a decade. He came back directly after um his cancer treatments and put up incredible numbers in the second half of that campaign, while being unable to run. Like this guy does not need to like be physically dominant to find the back of the net, to be creative. Like his technique is genuinely very very good. I don't get it. You can look at what he did in AFCON. Like that is a serious competition. And he managed to win it while injured for his country, which like look at the perseverance that guy has. So I really hope for him to find a starting spot sooner this season. Again, I think that as soon as Guirassy is fit, he will leave, or he will at least like leave on deadline day. But I think the club might delay that just to get him for like the first match or two, to have a backup option, just in case. But if we're gonna see Adeyemi and Bayer in that kind of like hybrid white right wing striker role, then like it's not even needed. And I just really hope that we're able to get a move for him, just so he gets to play as much as he wants and deserves after all he has gone through.
I think the one thing that maybe putting clubs off of Haller, well, two things really. I mean, unfortunately, he was sick, and they may not want to take a risk on that, on him. I don't want to say like getting sick again, but like not being able to compete at that full level. I mean, I know we're saying that we saw him still put up great numbers, and that's 100% true. I think that there's still a quality player there, but that I guess that leans more towards like your clubs like an AC Milan or something like that. That's still like pretty high tier. Obviously, I don't see him going to like a Man City or anything like that. That'd be that just doesn't even come to mind. But like for example, clubs that may be of like one rung below that level, it's the wages, and I think that's what we've seen also with Mokoko. wages are an issue. He's also on higher wages than what other clubs would be willing to pay for him. So you have to keep that in mind as well. I do think that in terms of Mukoko, his agent really shot himself and the player in the foot with regards to those statements. And you've kind of pigeonholed your player into a situation where, well, it's kind of just like, well, it doesn't seem like at the club there's any way to reconcile this. Because at the end of the day, it would be great if they could, because having Girassi, Bayer, and Mukoko, I mean, that ends up working out with the minutes that we have, or have on offer, I should say. But yeah, I mean, in this situation now, it just kind of seems that you can't reconcile it, so he has to leave. So now it's like, well, now everything has to line up. The deal for the club has to line up. The player has to want to go there, and you've kind of put the pressure on yourself to do that. They could have just said nothing and possibly found a solution one way or the other. But agents will be agents, and it is what it is. And just quick note on Brunner. I mean, I agree with Ali. I think the drama was far too much. And same to your point, Eli, I do think, yeah, like he would have probably been better served having a few of those minutes. But regardless, when it comes to a player just coming straight out of the academy to have demands about, be like, yeah, I need to be in the first team. I need to be starting, all that stuff. That's kind of wild, in my opinion.
And going to Cercle of Bruges, like,
yeah,
he's kind of proven the club's point.
Yeah.
No offense to him, but like,
exactly.
mid-table Belgian league side, like, what are we talking about? The one thing I kind of disagree with, and I've seen a lot of this, like, people blaming the agent, like, that agent is either the worst agent in the world or Mukoko asked for that, and I don't think he's necessarily like not doing his job. Like, I think there is a logic to it because it hurts Dortmund's negotiating point, and I think that's what he was trying to do, because if they're paying a lower fee, they might pay more wages because they can afford a bit more there, but I just don't think it's necessarily working, because I think that Sebastian Kehl has done a genuinely class job in every negotiation, like getting 30 million for Fulker, no offense, after a bad season, with worse underlying numbers than the actual performance, like, is genuinely very good. I have referred to West Ham as like one of those dumb Premier League clubs, because I do name names, and they went for it. But again, also, I think he did take a significant pay cut in wages, because Fulkrug is very working class, and he really cares about football. So I do commend him for doing that and being able to make those choices. But again, like, for so many of these guys, like, their career is only so long, and they deserve to make the money that they signed in the contracts for. And not everyone is a Nicholas Fulkrug who just cares about smashing defenders and headed the ball into the back of the net. But now we can get on to our player profile and projections for Dortmund's attackers, and let's start with the biggest signing, including his signing bonuses. It's about 29.5 million for Serhou Guirassy, 43 goals in 71 Bundesliga appearances. I think it was 31 in all competitions last year, 31 goal contributions in the league as well, 31 goals, period, in all contributions, including the Pokal. Phenomenal season with Stuttgart last year. It was his first season over 2,000 league minutes, is my favorite thing I like to point out as like a little bit of a detractor from his resume. But what can we expect from Guirassy this season?
Hopefully more of the same. Considering how the team played in that most recent game, I don't think he'll be starving for chances. I think he'll be spoiled for them, and I think he'll have the opportunity to keep that going, because 43 and 71, that's a pretty solid ratio, and I'll take that any day of the week. So if he can keep it going, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think it's about keeping it going, because, as we've talked about before, my main reservation about it is you don't want it to be a one season wonder type of season, because he hasn't put up these types of numbers in previous seasons, no disrespect to him, he's here. I'm happy he's here because from what he showed, he's a quality striker, and that's only going to help. But yeah, it's about consistency. So if he can put up those numbers again, great. If we do see a dip from that 28 to down to like 16, 17, the optics there aren't as great, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for the best with regards to Girassi. I mean, he's shown he can play, and yeah, I'm gonna be an optimist and say he's gonna put up similar numbers this season. So yeah, he's gonna help out the club, and I think that's what matters most.
I think I'm so sorry if you don't mind me jumping in. I think if he scores more than 20, it's a successful season for him. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, like I'll take that number. Considering like how he performed obviously last season, I'll take 20ish. Even goal contributions with 20
100%.
goals would be fire. Yeah.
In the 20s is totally fine. I think it's just more so if you see that drop below that, then you're seeing a drop in quality and for what the Dortmund, excuse me, what the club paid for him both in terms of the even though it's a release clause and the potential fees we'll be paying for him in terms of salary. Yeah, you want him to maintain that top tier level of output. So
So what I'm seeing across all leagues he's played in is 73 and a half career XG, 63.4 non-penalty XG, but if you look at his actual goals, 91. So this is a clinical finisher, and to me the most important thing, can he stay on the pitch? Because I think the that he's shown a pretty good track record of whenever he's played, he's performed. So to me, it's just about sustaining the longest season Dortmund will probably have had with the Club World Cup, the expanded Champions League format. To me, the question isn't whether or not he will perform; it's whether or not he can like hold up over the course of such a long season. Because whenever he's been on the pitch in his career, he's performed. Last year, it was immediately after he came back from the few injuries he had. He was straight back on the score sheet. If he can keep doing that, I think that's hugely important. So to me, if he's on the pitch, he's performing. My worry is if he's on the pitch because he's just had his longest, or the most minutes he's had in a season, most injuries he's had in a season. So to me, he hits 2,000 minutes. I think we're good. If he does not in the league, then I think I have some worries. But to me, that's the most important thing. But also, when you have Maxi Bayer, it's a lot less of a worry. And going into the season with Maxi Bayer rather than a Fulkrug who may be like a little bit past it, a little bit on the downturn of his career. Um, that's not necessarily something I had the confidence in after he had regressed from his good campaign with Werder Bremen. Um, but the club has depth, so the club can cover him. But to me, I need not 2,000 in all competitions. I need 2,000 league minutes, and then everything else like is a bonus. So to me, that's the most important thing. I'm expecting 20 plus goal contributions from Garassi, and I think that's like the minimum. Honestly, is 20 that mark. Like Ali said, I think 20 is not a success. I think you get over 25, and you're looking at a success. But again, I think it'll only be a successful signing if he gets over 25 goal contributions for the next two seasons. Because of the financial outlay.
Yeah, like honestly, like not to repeat everything we've been saying, but um, over 20 goal contributions, considering all the other goal scoring threats we have, I think it's a great season. It's like if you get 20 from him, if you get 15 or so from hopefully Daniel Malin, right? Add some more from Kerim and Brandt, and that's a pretty strong forward line. We just got to worry about how your favorite player is going to fare in the midfield if he's going to be starting more often. But yeah.
Okay, and then we can move on to our next new signing, also at number 9. It's Maxi Bayer, 16 goals and an assist last season for Hoffenheim. This is a versatile player. Shaheen called him his dream player after signing the striker. I talked about this on our podcast before. I've written some articles about it. Shaheen's two strikers in Turkey. It was Haji Wright and Buxa, a big Pole. They're 6'2", 6'4". So very tall players, and they were also both capable of coming out wide, and that's something Bayer can do. So this guy is exactly what Shaheen likes. He's a little bit shorter at only 5'11", I think, but I think he can still do some of that work in the air. Different sites have him listed at different heights. I've seen a little over 5'11". FBref has him at 6 foot, but he's not a small guy. He is physical. He is fast, and he's had 2 seasons in the second Bundesliga, over 2,000 minutes. Last season, 2,400 minutes, 16 goals and an assist. Like, whatever we get from this guy, I'm thinking it'll be more than enough. I honestly think there's a very good chance he hits that 20 goal mark in all competitions, which would be his best. I think this guy will be very, very good this season.
He looks great. I've said this on a previous episode. I haven't seen too much of him in game, but he looks fantastic. He's very versatile. It's exactly what we need considering what we just saw. And yeah, I'm of the signings, I'm most excited about him and Jan Koto. I have big expectations for those two. So yeah, I hope we see him start in the next game.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there as Ali. I think him and Yan Kuto are my two favorite signings as well. Though, I mean, Gross comes close as well. But we're here to talk about the strikers, so let's talk about that. So I mean, yeah, Bayer is kind of just the byproduct of a really messed up striker merry-go-round on account of just Dortmund not knowing how they want to plan. I personally don't think Full Crew had necessarily a bad season last season, but at the same time, with him going to the Premier League and wanting to go there and live that dream, it frees up room for a player like Bayer, which I didn't necessarily think was even on Dortmund's radar necessarily, because we had so many strikers. Why would we even think about him? But he was absolutely fantastic for Hoffenheim. And yeah, 16 goals, 1 assist, versatile player, like we've already mentioned. I really like what I saw from him in the first game against Lubeck when he came on for his little cameo. He was getting into the right positions, had a couple shots on target, almost scored his very first competitive goal for Dortmund. So yeah, I mean, I was happy with what I saw, and I'm excited to see where his Dortmund career takes him.
Eli, what do you think?
For Bayer, I mean, I kind of already spoke about it, but I think that he might not actually start the next game, which may surprise you just because of Shahid's quotes about earning it, and his appearance in the cup match was so short. But I just think he's probably liked what he's seen from everyone else, and I think he might keep a very similar 11. I hope Bayer starts. I would like to see one of the midfielders dropped. Maybe Sabitzer, and then you have Gross and Shan in your double pivot, and that will allow you to have Brandt at the 10 with Bayer, and you keep the next guy we're going to talk about. Personally, I guess I would highlight Karim Adeyemi as the player I expect to take the leap this season. So obviously last year had some injury issues and form issues at the start of the campaign, missed the last little bit of the preseason, but basically Karim Adeyemi was a huge part of the Champions League run. The season before, he overperformed his XG by the same amount he underperformed it last season. So if he stays fit, gets 2,000 minutes, like and runs a little bit hot, all of a sudden you're going to be seeing a guy that's going to be talked about like world class is going to be put next to his name by a lot of people. He has the pace, and he's gotten penalty calls in the last two matches. Um, and if he can actually get the penalty calls he deserves in the league, that's a real skill to have in like an age when more and more penalties are being given. So I think that's something that is very important in modern soccer. And so I think he can be a real difference maker. And you really look at the way his pace can open up an attack. Like the back line will just have to drop back deeper and deeper, and that's going to give more space for Jamie Bynoe-Gittens and Julian Brandt to play in, and to kind of allow these guys to run at guys, to allow Marcel Sabitzer, Pascal Gross space in and around the box when they have to sink the line a bit deeper because of Karim Adeyemi's space or pace, excuse me. So I'm expecting big seasons this year. I'm expecting a breakout campaign. To me, the biggest thing is, can he stay on the pitch? That's what I would say is most important. But what are your guys' thoughts? Am I getting a little too biased on the One Piece fan?
Well, there's two of them. But with regards to him, if he can stay on the left, or if he's allowed to play solely on the left, I think he'll have a great campaign. I think there's a aspect of Shaheen wanting to experiment and have him come off the right. I don't really like him off the right. It seems like his instincts are off. But I always liked him. I think he's fantastic. I never understood the hate that people were giving him. But yeah, I expect big things from him, and also Jamie Bynoe-Gittens. But Kareem has to play off the left. That's his position for me.
To answer your question, you're like, yeah, you're biased. And that's your boy. So that's why you're biased. But it's okay because we all have those players. I mean, the way I talk about Sabitzer, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Any Polish player.
Or any, well, not any, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now because there's those that I would readily criticize, but I digress before we go down a rabbit hole that doesn't have anything to do with Dortmund. But let's talk about Adeyemi. I think you guys touched on a lot of the points already. I mean, the only thing I would say is end product. We need to see him put the ball in the back of the net more. And last season, like you mentioned, I mean, there were issues related to injury. I mean, dips in form, up and down. I mean, he's a younger player as well, so that's gonna happen. But we do need to see more in product, a little bit better decision making in front of goal. That's all I'm gonna say. Otherwise, he's a threat. He's shown he's a threat. I mean, even in the game against Lubeck, he was a threat. So, seems to be going in the right direction. And yeah, just like I said, end product.
Yeah, to me, he's the only player I've ever seen that is better from the start than off the bench. Like he got pulled a lot of the time last year at the 60th minute. I have no issue with players that force you to make a substitution at the 60th minute, especially in this day and age with 5 changes. I think that's not an issue at all. I think that like last season, off the bench, he was kind of not good, which is very rare. So just only start him because apparently like that's what it takes, and he will perform better because that's what we saw last season. It was that first couple months where he had like the one bad start when he was just back from injury, and then for a long time it was like 5 to 30 minutes at most off the bench, with Terzic just throwing out his garbage time minutes, and you saw him kind of like struggle to get into games. So to me, he's the only guy I've seen better from the start than off the bench. And if he can only start this season, then you'll see a little bit more consistency, and hopefully that like 60th minute thing they found last season, which kept him on the pitch for a long time, really makes a difference and allows him to stay fit for more of the campaign and perform at the highest level. But again, he was one of the guys, one of the attackers that stayed on the pitch longer in the DFB Pokal. So maybe he's just a bit more fit this season, because he's had that full preseason. So let's get into our next guy. He was my dud of the week for our first match. It's Daniel Malen, 13 goals, 3 assists last season. hoping that if he stays, he can have a similar number of goals this season at the very least. But what can we expect for Daniel Mullen?
Yeah, with Mullen, I'll jump in first here, just because you mentioned something that I think applies similarly to Kareem as it does to Donnie here. I think Mullen is better from the jump as well. I don't think he's great when he's coming into a game and when he's just kind of like cold. I think he's the type of player that to perform not only needs minutes, he does need to start, because that's the only way we've seen him kind of hit that form and score those goals. We talk about patchiness and all of that. Um, Last season, when he was starting in the beginning of the season every game, that's when he went on that run. But then we saw some rotation pop in there for him, and then he kind of fell off and then took a while to get back up there to start scoring again like he did in the Champions League and such. I think what he started finding his form again when we played his old team PSV. So I mean, he's the type of player that needs runs, but like Kareem, he offers pace. He can be a tricky player when he's on form, and 13 goals, 3 assists. If we're saying that 16 goals and 1 assist for Bayer, who played as a striker, is good, I think 13 goals and 3 assists is more than decent for a winger. But obviously, you want to see him improve from that. So if he does end up staying, and if he does show the body language and the will to actually, be at Dortmund and play, obviously I think he should. And yeah, we should hopefully see him perform just even better than what we saw from him last season. Once again, if he is still here by the start of the Bundesliga campaign, or by the end of the transfer window, I should say.
Against PSV, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but every ball he got up until he scored, he was firing. It was a touch shoot, touch shoot. Like,
Yep.
this guy needs to chill out.
Dude was on a mission.
I swear to God, he had to score. But yeah, it's I think Brian made a fantastic point. He said if 16 goals and 1 assist is good for Bayer, I think it's also good for Malen, who was coming off the wing. So yeah, if he stays, and if he's an integral part of the team, 16 goal contributions, no matter how they come, I'll take. Just I just want some belief, from all the players, because it seems like just obviously one game, the competition may not have excited him, but it just wasn't great seeing him recently. But I if he keeps shooting, I'll be happy. Let's put it that way.
I mean, we'll see if he plays at like what role he plays and what he's asked to do. Because if you look at his like FBref numbers last year, 98th percentile for wingers for non-penalty XG, for shots, 97th percentile, for expected assists, 27th percentile. If you look at like the other wingers, it's Kareem Adeyemi and Jamie Bynoe-Gittens, and like they are both much more creative than that. Kareem Adeyemi specifically last season had 0.19, which was in the 52nd percentile. It was much higher the year before, when Dortmund actually cared about attacking the goal. So like Malen historically has not created many, if any, chances. So like if he's on the pitch and you have Bayer, who's a competent striker now, and you have Guirassy, who's a very competent striker, but Bayer as a striker hasn't necessarily been that creative. You could see Malen kind of look a bit lost because there's a guy on the pitch who's a bit better than him at getting on the end of these chances. With Guirassy, I don't think you'll have that issue if Malen stays, again, because Guirassy can create as well as score goals. So that would be my worry for Malen, is like I just don't see a fit next to Bayer, because like I'd rather see Bayer try and get on the end of these chances and take a lot of shots and have an actual winger out there who can play two ways, whether it's Jan Koto playing a little bit higher, whether it's Kareem Adeyemi, or if Cole Campbell continues to show us that he deserves to be with the senior team. Like one of these guys that can play both ways. I think that really matters, and that's where Daniel Mullen like maybe hurt out because I think where he's had his best campaigns, um, it's essentially been when Dortmund have that like creative forward. Last season, like just getting the ball bouncing off Fulkrug or Haller, where we didn't necessarily have a guy, a striker who was getting on a ton of chances. Especially with Fulkrug that just like left Mullen more space in the box. So that's my worry for him this season.
Yeah, and to your point there, and this just comes to mind because I know we've spoken about this before when we've spoken about Mullen in particular, and it kind of comes down to also where he himself wants to play on the pitch. I mean, in terms of the creativity, we know what we're getting in the package that is Daniel Mullen. He's not your typical winger. He played as a second striker at PSV, and I think depending on Shaheen's system, you have an opportunity to give him some minutes there. Like if we're playing a front line of Serhou Girassi and Maximilian Bayer, you could give him some minutes in there for Bayer sometimes, you know. So we can see him play there a little bit more. I don't expect to see him starting there, obviously over Bayer with the layout that they put out and all that. But I definitely see your point where it comes to the creativity, but it also comes down to the type of player he is. So maybe that shift in system will be still beneficial for him and he'll still get, a proper amount of minutes in that. But either way, I think also he does kind of solve in-house that striker deficit that now we would see with Mukoko leaving. And I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Haller. I mean, we're thinking that he's going to stay now because the club might want to keep him. But if they want to move him on, you bring Mullen into the fold as another option there. So he can play in more of a natural position for him, and be, I guess, a better fit for the team in that sense. But we'll see what Shaheen chooses to do. I know he doesn't necessarily fit that, super tall, like, striker that's able to go out wide, as you mentioned, with the types of players he had with Haji Wright and Buxa. But he is an option for that place, and he can play in kind of a similar way to the way Bayer plays. So we might see some more minutes for him there. So that might see him get a bit more success in the team as well.
So then, where do you guys see a Mukoko fitting if he were to stay? Because at the moment, right, there is that profile that Shaheen likes, plus all the things that's going on around him. He might, like Eli mentioned earlier, like the Betis deal might go through. But if it doesn't and he stays, do you see him playing, or do you see him just playing in the reserves or something like that?
Seems like no, honestly, because from what I've seen at least, and from what I've been reading, is basically that, if he stays because of what's happened with the agent, he's kind of in the stands. Whether that's the right decision, I personally don't think it is. But I mean, if that ends up if he does end up staying, it does look likely that that's going to end up being the case. I mean, he wasn't involved in the Lubeck game at all. I mean, maybe that's because of negotiations, right? So that may change when the season actually really gets rolling and the transfer window closes. But I don't know. I don't think it bodes well for him. So I don't think we'd see much of him if he did end up staying.
I think he just doesn't stay. Like I think that's what it is. I think he's out the
Exactly.
door. I think that for all this hate his agent's getting, for doing what he was asked, I think he will find a club for Mukoko. I think there's a lot of interest out there. I don't think it's necessarily at the level you would have guessed a couple of years ago, but this is still an incredible, incredible talent who has performed whenever he's seen the pitch. And again, we can blame Terzic for that, for him like needing to be in this situation in the first place. But it is what it is now, and like I think he leaves. I think he finds a club. I don't think there's been a shortage of like the amount of clubs linked. It's just about who will meet Dortmund's number. And I think my trust from the start of the window to now has grown exponentially as they've continued to get the fees that they wanted for a lot of these guys, and to kind of get like what they like, get what they want, get who they want, and get the guys they want out. So I fully believe that they'll be able to take care of business there, and I have no worries about it. Like I think they've gotten every important thing right this summer. So I think he's gonna end up leaving just because they don't have the space on the books, and everyone knows the situation, and everyone knows what Dortmund wants, and I think they will get it, or at least very close. So I don't necessarily have uh, a projection for him this season with Dortmund. I think he's out the door.
I mean, let's hope, right? Because it's like I mentioned earlier, I just don't want drama. I think we've had enough of it in the past 2 or 3 years of it. Not just him, but like other players as well, including the whole supposed mutiny last year. But so I had a question. So we saw Jamie Bynoe-Gittens play a different role ish in this past game. Do you think that that role suits him, or do you think having him in a more traditional winger role is better for him? Obviously, like I felt like the formation changed here and there as the game went on and things like that, but he was doing things we didn't see him do before as often. So, what do you guys see him in this coming season?
I mean, I see him starting out on the left wing. We've talked about how his minutes have doubled year on year, and that would put him at 2,000 minutes this season, which is a starting player. That's what a starter gets. That's what I think we can expect him. I think he'll play on the left touch line. I think he'll get the ball, and I think he'll run at players. And I think he will have games like he did against Lubeck, which are not that impressive. And I think he will have games like he did against, I think it was like Hoffenheim last year, where he's not necessarily like dribbling past the player every time, but then he'll have one run where he beats three people and sets up someone for a tap in. Like I think that's who Jamie Bynoe-Gittens is. I don't think he's an efficient player. I think he's a fun player to watch. And I think he will run at people relentlessly. And when it works out, it will be sensational to see.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Eli. I think he starts out on the left wing and does what we know him to do well. And yeah, I think we've talked about this before. This has to be his season to kind of like impose himself on the team and on that starting position. And I think he has all the tools from what I've seen from preseason that he can do that. So it'll really come down to, him showing what he needs to show in training and taking the opportunities that he's given. And I think if he does that, we could end up seeing a breakout campaign for him. And yeah, I mean, I have faith in the player. He's a very exciting player to watch. And I think what he does well. I do think he's very good when he runs at players, but as Eli said, as is the nature of doing that, sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think we're just gonna witness a very exciting season for him, and yeah, it'll be out on the left wing.
Okay, well, I have a question then, because only one player can play on the left wing. So, are you taking Jamie Bynoe-Gittens, or I can already see Eli smiling, Karim Adeyemi?
Well, I think we've only seen Kareem Adeyemi for shocking on the right. So I don't think it's a question of them two. I think it's going to be the next guy we kind of have to talk about, and that's Julian Duranville. He has not had a history of being fit, so I think the left wing position will be Jamie Bynoe-Gittens to lose. Just because like Duranville has had very two injury hit campaigns. We all know the talent level, and I think if he's fit and playing over the course of like the first 3 months, it'll go from him potentially getting a start here and there to him being in direct competition one for one. But right now, from what we've seen from Jamie Bynoe-Gittens, he deserves the spot, and it should be his to lose. I think Duranville definitely has the talent to take any spot from anyone, right wing, left wing. I don't think it really matters to him. He will run at you relentlessly, like I said before. But again, I think it's only once he shows that he can stay fit for an extended period of time will he get the run with that first 11. But what do you guys think about Julian Duranville?
I think it's exactly what you said there. I think it's a matter of fitness because the talent is absolutely there. I mean, so many people got so excited when we saw him play against Mainz in that dreadful, terrible, sad, so many adjectives game. Uh, that traumatizing. There you go. That's the other one I wanted to add. Traumatizing game. But he was only on for 15 minutes, and he was dynamite. And of course, at the time, it was like, okay, hold on, let's not get too excited. And of course, then he had the injuries that he had to deal with. But if he does stay fit, he has absolutely all the tools to become the next breakout star at Dortmund, the next youngster. Just saying this by going by the trend of what happens. A youngster does well, he has 2 or 3 good seasons, and then he gets sold for 100 million. He could be that player, or here's a better version of that. He does really well and becomes a legend for Dortmund and stays his entire career. I know I'm just being very, very optimistic here, but he has the ability to do either, is what I'm trying to say. He could either become the next player that Dortmund sell off for a small fortune, or a large fortune for that matter, or he ends up just being an absolute mainstay in the first team, being a very pivotal player out wide, because he is a very fun player to watch. Once again, not one of those super efficient players, but the way he dribbles around people, the way he gets the ball in between their legs, the way he finds himself in an attacking position, the way he shoots. He has all the skills necessary to become the next big talent. So I think, and that's why I said the last couple episodes that I'm not super worried about the position on the wing right now. Some people wanted to sign an additional winger. I don't think there's that much of a worry right now. I think we have a lot of quality, and we have a lot of players still in the academy that if we do need to bring up, we'll talk about the last player soon, I'm sure. Eli's getting that ready for us right now. But yeah, we have all the quality needed on the wing, in my opinion. I think Duranville, if he can stay fit, will be a very big part of that.
It's all about if he can stay fit, because I guess I'm just gonna echo everything you guys said. But he's fantastic, really quick, very skillful. Still young, so there's still room to grow and room to mature. But I don't want to put expectations until we see him like stay fit and be part of the squad for a full season. Just be available. I'm not saying start like X amount of games or whatever. Just be available. But so far from what we've seen, pretty fantastic. But I guess we'll hold our final thoughts, I guess, on him for a while.
Yeah, and this will be the first like real time he has a chance to accrue like a sample size at the senior level. So like yes, he may be that flair winger, but this is a generational talent. So maybe he is efficient at it because maybe he can just do it like most of the time. Like Kudus is a guy that runs at people relentlessly. Um but he's pretty efficient because he just beats his man almost every time. So that's something I've seen obviously against some not necessarily excellent 1v1 fullbacks in Matson and whoever it was against Phoenix Lubach that he was running at. But this is a guy that is he is a generational talent, but we haven't seen a lot of him because he's been injured so frequently. And so we need to temper expectations as he adapts to senior play and all that. But we do know that this guy's talent um, hasn't been seen at Dortmund on the wing since a young Jadon Sancho. Like that's the level of talent this guy has. The next guy we're going to talk about, also out of the academy, I believe this is a Sebastian Kale signing. It's Cole Campbell. He's had a short preseason with the team, had a minor injury immediately upon his return. He could benefit with Brunner leaving and as a natural right winger. Last season with the U19s, it was 8 goals, 10 assists in the league, 11 goals, 13 assists in 32 total appearances. This season, he's made 1 appearance with the U19s against Schalke, 1 goal, 2 assists, and the Schalke coach was essentially like, why are we playing against this guy? He is a senior player. He would walk into the Schalke 11. He's a Bundesliga quality player. So that's the type of talent we're dealing with. Um, and obviously we like guys coming out against Schalke and dominating. Whether it's U19 level, second team once they Schalke gets relegated into the third division and they can play each other. Um, Whatever it is, we like guys that perform against Schalke. This guy just performed against Schalke. He's been with the senior team. His one appearance, he looked good. I like the look of him. True right winger. He can cut in. He can go to the outside. I think he can. I think his ceiling as a creator is very, very high. As an American, he's probably our best U20 winger prospect. So I hope nothing but success for him. The club obviously has a model with these young American players. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Cole Campbell, having now watched a little bit of him in preseason?
Before I get into Campbell, I want to point out that you mentioned Schalke going down to the third tier. I miss the Riviera Derby. Don't put those types of things out into the universe. I want a damn derby again, like a real derby. So please, Schalke, get your stuff together and get back into the Bundesliga because I miss it, or at least somehow manage to get
Just
farther.
in jest. Just in jest.
Yes, yes. Um, or at least somehow manage to get farther into the Pokal or something where we meet up and it's some sort of epic clash because I need that. But Campbell, very talented player. I've liked what I've seen, the little of what I've seen of him as well. And yeah, definitely one of the better, if not the best, under 20, youth U.S. talent that we have right now, out wide, I should say. Um, but in terms of minutes and how much I expect him to play, considering, I mean, what I just said when we were talking about Julian Duranville, Adeyemi, Bynoe-Gittens, and Malin, I don't know how many minutes he's going to get for the first team. Do I think he'll make his professional debut in terms of playing against proper opposition? Sure. Do I think he's going to get extensive minutes? Probably not. But I don't think it's super far out for him to be able to, make a claim for those minutes. I mean, we might still see a shift in the transfer. Like, for example, if we see a Daniel Malin leave or something like that, maybe they bring him up to kind of be, a depth piece and they trust Adeyemi and JBG out wide with Duranville as the depth and then also Cole Campbell there. It might be too late for them to find an actual target, for example, to bring in or something like that. So in that sort of situation, which I don't think is super probable, maybe he gets more minutes. But overall, I think he's just going to be brought in, blooded into the league slowly. And yeah, I think that's kind of the way they should go about it. I don't think this young player should be getting too much pressure put on him. Very talented player, but there are players ahead of him right now that have worked for that, time to shine. So his time will come. I just hope he's more patient than Brunner was. I think that's the one thing that's important for me. I think he shows that level of patience and ability to wait for his moment, and then he just takes that moment when he's given it.
From the Americans that we've had, I think he moves the least like an American. Like I was surprised to find out he's American. He's excellent on the ball, fantastic dribbler. He could play on either wings, probably even as a 10 if he really wanted to. There's like Eli said, his ceiling is pretty high. I think he's fantastic. I hope we do see him, but also with what I said from Duranville, I don't want to set expectations for someone that's just starting their professional career with us. So looks really good though. Looks really, really good.
Yeah, let him get some minutes with the second team. Let him tear up the third division. And as soon as there's an injury to any of the wingers, because again, long season, like things happen. Uh, Obviously, you don't hope for these things, but this is a soccer campaign. Whether it's the flu, a cold, or God forbid anything worse, like it's gonna happen at some point. And that's when I think you come and take Cole Campbell and you say, here's like a little bit off the bench, have a taste, and you can start to see what he can really do. And like that is what my expectations for Campbell are. I think of everyone we talked about, he's like the supplemental guy. There's other supplemental guys like we could talk about if we wanted to be here for like 3 hours. I don't know like how deep we want to go down the rabbit hole. uh, Obviously we haven't talked too much about any guys that I think are far away from the senior team, but this is a guy that's training with the senior team. I don't think it's a question of if, but when he makes his senior debut, assuming he stays fit for all the season. Knock on wood. Um, this is a guy the club rates. He was up with the senior team last winter, so he's been in the picture a while. He'll just be a sub, but that's honestly very good for his age. We've seen countless guys come through Dortmund's academy and not make it into the Champions League until they're 25. Chris Furyk, or even like the top flight until they're like 23. In his case, so there is a ton of talent, or you could even go older with Jan Nicholas Besta. There's so much talent that comes through the academy, comes through the second team, and I think you need to get like having him as a proof of concept for academy players playing in the third division would do so well for us to kind of allow us to keep these top academy U19 players for an extra year or two before we sell them on or blood them into the first team. So having him as a proof of concept would be huge for the club. I think the club is very aware of that because you're looking at a guy, Rafael Lubach, who we've talked about very briefly before on the podcast. Like he is 19, could have signed with our second team, instead opts to go to Nuremberg, subbed on today in the cup. Will probably be a rotation player for them, but if you have a chance of spending that age 19, age 20 season with our second team in the third division, getting like 1,500, 2,000 minutes, and then jumping to the first team as like a rotation player, like that would do the club such a huge thing about getting these like 19-year-old players on senior professional contracts and then playing them either in the third division for an extra year and selling them on, or bringing them into the first team if they're good enough, and just getting those extra couple years, I think is huge for the club financially and for the development of these players as potential first team players for Borussia Dortmund. So my hope is Cole Campbell is the proof of the concept, because like one of the criticisms Dortmund's had about getting the second team into the third division is that all of a sudden it's no longer about the Dortmund Academy players and our brightest talents that have first team prospects. All of a sudden now it's about signing other like 19-year-olds that are not getting senior deals from other academies. And so I think that Cole Campbell can kind of start to shift the narrative around. Like you've already seen Hendry Blank last year got like one or two appearances with the first team, but was playing every game for the third division side, our second team, and 7.5 million, and that's a lot better than like some of the guys we've sold previously for very, very little, who were in like either the fourth division with our second team or just the U19s regularly. So I think it's very important for Cole Campbell to play with the second team and succeed with the first team.
Yeah, I guess just to echo it, we've talked about it before where we want it to be a club where players want to stay for at least the majority of their careers. And I feel like this generation could be the shift. Um, and I hope that it is the case. But in terms of Cole Campbell, fantastic player. I think he's definitely one to watch, and along with obviously Duranville, I'm excited about the season. I gotta say, I don't know what's your guys' feeling about it, but in terms of my end, um, it's just it's really really cool to see everything kind of click, and I hope it's only up from here.
Yeah, I'm for sure excited too. So I definitely echo that. I think everything they've shown to this point points to a good season. Once again, adding that caveat, it was preseason, but I've liked what I've seen, and I think it should be a good one.
Okay, and so actually, we're gonna have our first preview of this season as we play Eintracht Frankfurt. So it's William Pacho out as their left center back, Arthur Theot in from Stade Rennes. Koch has been kept on a permanent fee. They got in a center back from Young Boys. It looks like returning from loan, Orale Amenda, but he's going to be out injured. Some other key signings, you would have Nathaniel Brown at left back. Not sure he will start. You have Rasmus Christensen joining from Leeds at right back. And then Oscar Hoyland joining as a midfielder, given the number 6, another young talent that they've kind of scooped up. Shan Uzun coming in, and then you have some younger players that have joined that will be in and around the first team, maybe leaving on loan. But they did keep Hugo Ekitike as well. Omar Marmouche, you'll remember an attack because he was very good against us in the first time we played them last year. And of course, Dortmund Academy boy Ansgar Nauf. So what are you guys expecting from this first match?
Um, I'll just go first with this because for anyone who follows any of my work, they know that I sometimes also write about Frankfurt and kind of have a little bit of a soft spot for D. Adler, and I do think that the work that Dito Topmøller has done there has been quite good. I think the young players that they brought in, especially Uzun, are going to be very dangerous assets for them. They do have some very experienced players in there too. I mean, they have Götze as well. We know him quite well. He's not exactly the same player that he was, but he's a very experienced player now. He's been around the block, and I think they have a good mix and a good balance of both that experience and that youth. So they're going to be a dangerous side. I mean, that midfield of Götze, Hugo Larsson, Uzun, that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch. I mean, obviously it depends where he ends up playing Uzun. Then of course Ekitike up front. That is not a team to pull your nose up at. That is a team that's definitely going to test Dortmund, and I think it's going to be a very good first test for Dortmund to see exactly where our team is, and if we're able to really give them a good run for their money, that bodes well for us because I do think they're going to also be having a very good season by their standards, I should say. So overall, it's going to be probably in my opinion, the toughest game that Dortmund has yet to face since this new shift under Şahin. Not only because of the competitive match, but just the quality on the pitch and the variety of quality on the pitch. So yeah, I'm really excited for the game. I think it's going to be a pretty electric one. I think it's going to be a very attacking game, and yeah, I think we should be excited for a win for Dortmund based on quality and based on from what we've seen from what Şahin has been drilling into the boys. But they're going to have to be alert, and some of the slip ups that we saw against Lubeck, excuse me, that's going to get punished by Frankfurt a lot more than what we saw against them. So that has to be ironed out in training prior to.
I mean, Frankfurt give us a hard time every time we play them, so I expect this to be a very electric game, considering it is the first of the season in the Bundesliga season, pardon me, as well as it is a home game. So energies are going to be high. The emotions are going to be high. Frankfurt's always electric. They're always quick. They're always great in the counter. So I expect a very, very tough game. I don't know if we're doing scores, but I hope we win. I see Eli nodded. I'll give it a 3-2 for us. It's hard to keep Frankfurt quiet, especially when they're just in the right groove. So I think I would say 3-2. I'm a little worried, I'm not gonna lie. They're always good.
I'm going to give it a 3-1 just to put my score out there, but that 3-1 it doesn't tell the full story because it's going to be I think a little bit stressful for us. I think they're going to have their chances. So 3-1, but they're going to give a good account of themselves, I think, Frankfurt.
Yeah, also their DFB Pokal game is on Monday, so that is tomorrow as we are recording this. So we will have those 2 extra days of rest, which at this stage of the season, like I think that normally like 5 days, 6 days matters a bit less, but at this stage of the season, maybe it matters a little bit more. I think my score prediction for two, I think it's going to be Bayer off the bench, putting this one away late on in the second half, around the 74th minute, notching the fourth. So we can all be excited, but it'll be a little bit nervy before that fourth goal goes in. So do get ready to do some breathing exercise and keep it cool because as competitive football returns, we can all get heated, we can all get stressed. I'm mainly talking about myself right now, but it's been a nice episode with you guys. Is there anything you want to plug before we go?
Oh, I was gonna say Dortmund Dispatch. Follow us on Twitter. We appreciate the support that we've been getting on the episodes and on our Twitter. Fantastic, and yeah, that's it from me.
And you can catch me as always at Brian_Straub94. But as Ali said, the most important thing is follow the pod.
Yeah, and also follow Ali to see him complain about Dortmund and Barcelona on Twitter at VZN Sports.
There you go, plug them.
You
Yeah,
gotta plug him.
they
You
both
don't gotta
stress
follow.
me out. They both stress me out.
You don't gotta follow me, but follow the podcast. Like I said, Dortmund Dispatch. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. This podcast and all podcasts in the future will be on every major podcast streaming platform as well as YouTube. So you can get ready to see our gorgeous faces, talk about football, our gorgeous uniforms. We got the 2001 behind me. I got the BVB polo on. Brian, what jersey are you wearing for our audio only listeners?
2013-14 Royce Champions League jersey, actually. It's one I've been looking for a very long time, and I'm very happy I finally got it.
And Ali, what are you wearing? Who are you wearing? What designer?
Who am I wearing? I'm wearing the same jersey as Brian, but mine doesn't have Royce on the back, and I got it my first season as a Dortmund fan. I got it from Kuwait because that's where I'm from. I was like, you know what? I need to mark my first season as a Dortmund fan. I got the jersey.
Well, that'll do it for us. Have a good one.